Yo, Nick, I just got Revenge of the Sith.
I get to play the first mission.
Your Jedi shit don't work on me.
I'm playing the first mission.
Let's start the review. It's 2005, and it's the best time to be a Star Wars fan.
Facts.
Everybody is getting over the fact that the Attack of the Clones wasn't as good as anticipated, but we're excited for Revenge of the Sith. There's merchandise and advertising out the ass. I'm talking Burger King toys, funny Burger King commercials, Pringles commercials,
I love Pringles.
companies using Star Wars to market their services.
Holy shit, is that Chewbacca on my TV?
Star Wars A Tactics released, one of my favorite games. And we can't forget about the Kellogg cereal with the special light-up Star Wars spoon.
Nick, can't forget about all those Star Wars video games either.
Vin, you're absolutely right. In 2005, Star Wars released so many video games. We got the first LEGO Star Wars game, which was one of the best LEGO games of all time. We got a sequel to the original Battlefront, Battlefront 2, which is the best Star Wars game of all time. We also got Star Wars Republic Commando, which was one of the best first-person shooters for Star Wars.
Y'all sleeping.
But the reason we made this video is to discuss a great movie-based game on the PS2, Star Wars Revenge of the Sith.
Best prequel movie.
Revenge of the Sith on PS2 released on May 4th, 2005, which was a few weeks prior to the movie being released. That means you could play through the entire movie before seeing the movie.
What?
As the biggest Star Wars nerd, I celebrated May the 4th the right way by purchasing Revenge of the Sith, but I waited until after I saw the movie to play through it. After seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters, I was so glad I waited so I didn't spoil anything, and then I got the chance to experience the movie again by playing it through the game. Flash forward to present day 2022, where Kenobi's been out for a few months, and we've been enjoying the series ever since. And I'm not sure if this is the nostalgia talking, but seeing Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen reunite on camera really brought back memories from our childhood. Because Revenge of the Sith had one of the best duels of all time, let's jump right into the dueling mechanics of the game. Dueling Mechanics. Before we dive deep into the story, we wanted to discuss the dueling mechanics of this game and how it feels to really play it. I have to say, this is probably the best dueling mechanics for any Star Wars lightsaber game that I've played in a long time. Each button has a different type of strike. I believe square is like a quick attack, triangle is a stronger attack, and circle is more of a stab. Incorporating 3 different types of strike into each player really personalizes each character to the way you would fight. Another really cool aspect of the dueling is that each character has their own special ability. Depending on the combination of buttons that you click, each character has their own special attacks. The regular dueling is really cool, but if you land a special attack against your opponent, whether it's the CPU or the friend that you're fighting against, it just feels so good.
Or you're like me and you don't know any of the controls, so you mash every button until you do something cool.
The feel of the game is just extremely impressive, and I can't believe that this game was made in 2005. Another really cool aspect of the dueling is that if 2 players pick the same character, they change one of the character's lightsaber colors to the evil Sith version. When Anakin versus Anakin, the evil version of Anakin has a hood and a red lightsaber. Even Grievous has 4 red lightsabers. That's crazy.
Wait, you're telling me Darth Vader has a blue lightsaber?
Yes, even Darth Vader has a blue lightsaber, which is just ridiculous, but so funny. I think my all-time favorite move in this game has to be Darth Vader's Force Choke, just because of how influential it has been in not only Star Wars history, but movie history as a whole. Although this game was made in 2005, the mechanics definitely hold up for 2022. One of the worst missions in the entire game. The elevator mission was definitely my least favorite mission out of the entire game. The mission starts out by fighting these droidekas in the hallway, and you're waiting for R2 to unlock the elevator, but he takes his sweet ass time, and you wind up having to fight so many of these droidekas that are impossible to take down. Finally, R2 gets the elevators activated, but the door won't open, so you have to cut through the entire thing. This as a kid was so awesome. After you cut through it, you gotta kick it down. Once you get into the elevator, you wind up having to jump out anyway and fight all these buzz droids, and just when you wipe these out, it gets even worse. You jump to another elevator just to fight these flying battle droids, and let me tell you, they are the absolute worst. They have this insane blocking ability, at the same time they can fly, so they just fly away from you if you're trying to attack them. I don't know if you can hear the anger in my voice, but they are the worst part of this entire game.
Fighting Count Dooku. Like in the movie, you take on Count Dooku as Anakin with Obi-Wan, even though he doesn't really do much. I mean, just look at him. He's just standing there as I'm crushing Count Dooku right now. My man Dooku was a bitch. When I tell you this guy blocked everything, and then look at Kenobi just standing there doing nothing. After Kenobi gets tossed like a little bitch, you're stuck fighting Count Dooku by yourself. Unlike in the movie, you change locations and droids start spawning. Like this guy needs any fucking help. So I'm trying to focus on Count Dooku, but I also got the droid shooting at me, so I gotta kill the droid so I don't get shot while I'm fighting Dooku, and it's just havoc everywhere. As the fight progresses, Anakin turns more evil, and at this point, Chancellor Palpatine knows that Anakin's taking Count Dooku's spot. As soon as you think you have Count Dooku on the ropes, my guy does not want to give up. My guy does not miss. I'm blocking, I promise you. He just hits everything. I gotta get away. Force heal.
Yo, you gotta force heal!
You finally kill Count Dooku, but you don't chop his head off. You stab him in the chest. I guess they didn't want kids to see Dooku get his head chopped off, even though you see it in the movie.
Fighting General Grievous.
Hello there.
I got this game when it came out right away in 2005, and as a kid, General Grievous was impossible. Flash forward to 2022, replaying it, and he's still fucking impossible to beat! You have to block for 90% of the fight, because if you don't, he's just gonna mow you down, and it's impossible to get after him because you get stuck in this animation where he constantly cuts you over and over and over again. Later on in the fight, Grievous gets even tougher to beat. He takes Obi-Wan to the chiropractor, cracks his back crazy. After the 10th or 11th try, you finally get down to a groove where you know how often to block and how often to hit him, and finally you beat him. The weirdest part is he doesn't explode and you don't shoot him in the heart like the movie, he kinda just dies. It's so bizarre.
Fighting Mace Windu. Like in the movie, Anakin has to step in to prevent Mace Windu from murdering the Chancellor. My man Anakin straight up yeets Mace Windu across Palpatine's office. And when Mace gets up, he means business. This fight was really interesting because obviously in the movie, it didn't happen. Mace always thought he was the chosen one. This fight proved that Anakin was the chosen one and that he was stronger than Mace. Towards the end of this fight, Anakin ends up stabbing Mace Windu in the chest and kicking him through the window.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Vin, but to me that is super interesting.
Ah, here he goes.
There are so many fan theories that Mace Windu is still alive somewhere out there in the galaxy after getting his arm chopped off in the movies. Even Sam Jackson himself said that Jedis can survive from such a fall like that.
In my mind, I'm not dead. Jedis can fall incredibly high distances and not die.
There's a huge history of people with one hand returning in Star Wars. Put me back in this.
Put me back in the game. I'm ready.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
Most people want to believe that Mace Windu is still alive, but in this game, he's most likely dead. But then again, people live from stabs like that as well. You gotta love the continuity in Star Wars. Oh no, Mr. Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do?
Execute Order 66.
We couldn't do a complete deep dive into this game without mentioning the Order 66 Younglings mission. Throughout this entire game, they kept changing the way that the villains died to keep the game T-13. Could you hear my air quotes? Meanwhile, there's a dedicated mission to just mowing down every youngling you cross paths with. You can even hear the Jedi Masters yelling at the younglings to not be afraid, but they are shitting their fucking pants right now. I mean, he is electrocuting people in front of them. This is full-fledged evil Darth Vader we're talking about. This is not Anakin anymore. They think it is, but it's literally Vader mowing down younglings. So much for T-14. The ultimate battle between brothers. This fight was definitely the most movie-accurate fight in the entire game. Anakin had an absurd amount of health, and as Obi-Wan, you had to try and defeat him. The fight is intense from the beginning of the match. This may honestly be one of the hardest final boss fights in any video game ever. The coolest part about this game was as the levels progressed, the boss fights got even harder. But hopefully by the time you got to the end of the game, you'd have more experience and skill playing with each character. Just like the end of the movie, the fight progressed into the Mustafar facility, and even as this fight progresses, Anakin becomes more aggressive in his style. I feel like the gameplay mechanics really emulate what it would be like in real life to have a lightsaber battle. You constantly have to change your strategy, whether you take a more aggressive offensive approach or a laid-back defensive approach. And as Anakin becomes more aggressive throughout the match, you definitely have to lay off on the attacks more and start to block more often. Somehow Anakin has Force Lightning, which is super OP in this game. You finally fight him down to this platform, but it's not over yet. As Anakin's health lowers, he starts to force heal more often, which allows you to change your strategy and begin to attack. The last part of this duel is on this platform floating through the lava. This is where it gets really intense, because Anakin's health is really low and it makes you want to go full aggressive, but this is when Anakin is actually most aggressive in his fighting. Finally, you strike Anakin down and it cuts to the last scene of the game. Obi-Wan tells Anakin he's got the high ground, which we all know how this ends. He thinks he's underestimating him. Oh boy, here he goes. No! The downfall of Anakin Skywalker. It's so upsetting, it gets me in my feels every time. In this one, he doesn't scream that he hates him, it kind of just ends, and you don't see him burn up again, because it's T for teen. But wait a minute, we still murdered younglings.
When you thought this game couldn't get any better, they added the coolest twist. Once you complete the game, you can replay the last duel as Anakin. Once you beat Obi-Wan, it cuts to the same scene where Obi-Wan has the high ground. Little does he know, the high ground doesn't fucking matter. Anakin jumps over again, lands the flip, and stabs him. He kicks Obi-Wan down, leaving him in the past, and now establishing himself as a full Sith. At this point, he's completely Darth Vader. He's walking up to the Emperor after killing Obi-Wan, and the Emperor thinks that the galaxy will be ruled by both of them. He hands over his new lightsaber, but little does the Emperor know that Vader wants the galaxy to himself. The clone troopers watch in awe. They can't believe that Vader just killed the Emperor. He screams that the galaxy is his and that he will rule forever. Even after the alternate ending, the developers still had the care to add in these awesome bonus missions. In this bonus mission, you get the chance to play as Yoda. You have to kill all these clone troopers that have switched sides due to Order 66. In games, you rarely get to play as Yoda, so seeing him flipping around and chopping clones up was awesome. The clone troopers constantly come in waves, and you have to do your best to survive. This was such an awesome addition to the game, but not as cool as the next bonus mission.
The coolest bonus mission in any video game ever. Watching the cutscene of Darth Vader walking up to Obi-Wan, especially after seeing the Kenobi series in 2022, is just amazing. The coolest part is getting the ability to play as Darth Vader against Obi-Wan. If they made a movie-based game like this for the original trilogy, I think it'd be the best-selling game of all time. Having the chance to play through such an impactful part of the story really just added so much more to this game that nobody expected. Did I also forget to mention that Darth Vader has Force Lightning? What? These fights always had a movie-esque feel to them because of the camera angles and choreography that really is incomparable to any other game that I've played. This was such an awesome addition to the game and made the game that much better than it already was, which was pretty difficult to do to begin with. Now for our final thoughts on the game. Personally, I think if Battlefront 2 never came out and this was the only Star Wars game that we got in 2005, I think it holds up to be one of the best Star Wars games that came out in that era. I mean, we had Republic Commando, Lego Star Wars came out in 2005. This, obviously, the movie and this game came out in 2005. I think it's one of the best ones. I don't know about you.
Star Wars was pumping them out in 05.
They had so many games. But the craziest part is there was no, dilution of games. They were all really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this game holds up to be one of the best Star Wars games of all time, let alone just in 2005. I will put it at between the dueling mechanics, the story, I'd probably put it at like an 8.5, 9 out of 10. So I don't know. I mean, that's mine. I don't know. What would you rate it?
I'd probably rate it like 7 out of 10.
7? And what would be your reasoning as to like why it wouldn't get higher? Just out of curiosity.
I just feel like some of the mechanics at times, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like I was mashing buttons and I would get nowhere. That's the one thing I just didn't enjoy about it, but still great game, still holds up.
One thing I will say, 100%, I went through 3 controllers with this game, so honestly, maybe now I'm gonna go lean towards 8 out of 10 because I might have broken 3 or 4 controllers just based off the button mashing alone. Like the button mashing alone, you ruin controllers. Yeah. So if you haven't played Revenge of the Sith before, I think it's worth getting a copy. It says on the back, it says the ultimate Jedi action experience, and I think other than like KOTOR and other Star Wars games, this is probably the best Jedi-based game in my opinion. So I think it's worth getting.
If you're a fan of Star Wars, definitely
you have to
gotta
play
grab it.
It was great.